Mary Whitridge. Mary and her husband Edward lived in Mount Pleasant across the Cooper River. Edward was sickly all his life. He had breathing problems. He had consumption, pneumonia frequently, but of course he was a chain smoker. He smoked from when he got up in the morning till he went to bed at night. But to be fair, back in the Victorian era, people didn't know what we know about smoking. In fact, some Victorian era doctors actually prescribed smoking for patients with breathing problems, thinking it would break up their congestion or something. Mary kept trying to get Edward to stop smoking, but he wouldn't. His father had lived to be 88 and he smoked. Mary also had breathing problems. She didn't smoke, but she lived with a chain smoker. Edward wasn't as lucky as his father. When he was 61 years old, he got so sick that doctors here couldn't do anything more to help him. So it was decided to send him to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, which even then was a famous hospital. So in January of 1907, they put Edward on a ship to Baltimore. But 4 days out of Charleston, 2 days from Baltimore, Edward collapsed and died. By law, they had to take his body to the coroner in Baltimore for an autopsy. When they performed it, no surprises. His heart and his lungs were terrible. They sent a letter to Mary, asking her what she wanted them to do with the body. But they never got an answer. So they sent a telegram and then another telegram, but still no answer. So finally they were forced to bury Edward in the pauper's graveyard in Baltimore. When word finally got back here that Edward had died, people figured out what had happened. Because Mary was walking upstairs to the bedroom in their house when she collapsed and died. And she died on the very same day that Edward had died. Now this is the Whitridge family plot. This is Edward's family that's buried in here. And as I said, this single grave here is Mary's. This empty space beside her here in the corner is where Edward was supposed to be buried. And some people believe that the lady in white is Mary looking for her lost husband. In fact, there's a story about a guy who owned a shop over here on King Street. As I said, this is open during the day. It was late afternoon, early evening, and this guy was cutting through here to go to Archdale Street over there. And as he walked through the graveyard, he had a cigarette and a Zippo lighter in his hand. The lady in white appeared to him. Her body was shaking violently. She was distressed. Of course, he didn't light up, and when she disappeared, he turned around and he realized he was standing in front of the headstone of someone he'd known of who had died of cancer. At the public